in our lovely Instagram audience, and we're going to kickstart this episode. All right, guys, let's get started on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Guys, I have a short episode for you today. I have just got off the phone to one of our clients, and this man is firstly a beautiful, beautiful human. And we're going to call him in that kind of low 40s age range. And basically, he reached out because he's struggling to execute a little bit now that his work has started to get really, really busy. I mean, how many of us relate to that, right? We're all good in January, and then it gets to February, March, the kids start going back to school. We have to start going back to work. The boss is demanding more of us. Then all of a sudden, our form starts to drop to shit. We were going to the gym 3 or 4 days a week in January. Now we can't find the time to go once. We were eating so healthfully and everything was going really, really good in January, but now we just can't cut it. If you feel like that, the first thing I need to say to you is, dude, you are not alone. Girl, you are not alone. This is where the majority of people are at. And the first thing we need to do is get rid of the guilt that you feel. Because to be honest, it's the guilt that keeps you stuck, right? Here's how that looks. You sit there thinking to yourself, what's wrong with me? I'm a 40-year-old man or woman. I just can't seem to make this work. This is so simple. Why can't I lose weight? And so we get in our head. We start to say these dumb stories to ourselves. We start to say things like, I'm fat, I'm useless. Look at the standard that I'm setting to my kids. And then it becomes a story. And just like a snowball that's rolling down a hill, all of a sudden it becomes very, very difficult to stop it. So now that we've got that pretense, I want to talk about the conversation with my main man. He just said, look, I need some help. I just know I need a kick up the ass. You know what? I don't think most people need a kick up the ass. I don't think most adults, particularly adults that are in a transformation program, I don't think they need a kick up the ass. I think more so we need to bring some awareness to what you're doing. We need to do a reset. We need to have a new conversation, and we need to remind you that failing in your fitness transformation, your attempts at losing weight, failing is part of the process. Now, I want to give you 3 simple takeaways that I had a conversation with here. The first one is this. I want to ask you about your mindset when you are in momentum. When you are doing the thing, when you're going to the gym a couple of times a week, when you are feeding yourself a little bit better, when you're treating yourself with a little bit extra self-respect, do you feel better or worse? Because I think a lot of the time, busy parents are very self-sacrificial. So what they do is they think to themselves, well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spend all the time with the kids and spend all the time with my family because they're the priority. Got to spend all the time with work and they're the priority. And then what ends up happening is they lose themselves, right? Because they're prioritizing everything else. If you feel mum or dad guilt, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so what we start to do is prioritize everyone else. And then so we start to drop. The question I want to ask you is, are you a better parent, partner, boss, employee, friend, uncle, auntie when you're feeling better about yourself? So whilst the natural thing might be to self-sacrifice, self-sabotage, under pressure, that's not what your family wants you to do. That's not what your kids want you to do. They love mum or dad when dad is looking after themselves. And I think just knowing that helps you to prioritize yourself for just a little bit. Do you know that you do not need to spend 5 days a week in the gym to get results? 1 or 2 days, it's really good results. You don't necessarily need to hit 10,000 steps every single day. If you've gone from walking 3,000 steps a day and you can double that and get it to 6,000 steps, that's amazing. Do you know that you do not need to necessarily track your nutrition to get results. Under a period of difficulty, of struggle, you could actually just resort to microwave meals and make it easy on yourself. See, we have complicated this thing so much. And when we complicate things, it makes it difficult to scale, which brings me to my next point. So I want to stick on the first one, and that is, when you're struggling, are you better? Do you feel better when you are looking after yourself or not? Just remind yourself that I've got to make this a priority because I actually feel better. I'm a better dad. I'm a better mom. I'm a better whatever when I'm looking after myself. Point 2 is that nutrition fixes everything. Nutrition fixes everything. Look, I'm a big fan of personal trainers, huge fan of personal trainers. I think it's a gracious trade which doesn't necessarily pay that much, but to teach the skill of lifting and being active is great. The problem is that if you're really active, but your nutrition is shit, you're going to struggle. You're always going to struggle with your weight. Nutrition fixes everything. I'm talking on a physical level. So let's pretend that you're under the grind at work and you quite literally do not have a moment to get to the gym. Okay, cool. Let's say you cannot walk. Okay, cool. If we take your nutrition and get your nutrition right and get you eating properly, you don't have to burn off a bunch of extra calories because you're not taking in a bunch of extra calories. It's kind of like using a financial example. You don't need to go on a crazy budget if you're reining in your spending, right? The problem with most people is they don't know the amount of calories that they're consuming. And so what happens is they're having this massive influx of calories, mostly from eating processed foods on a daily basis. And they're trying to offset that with exercise. Then they start to struggle because life becomes tough and busy. And they think to themselves, I can't exercise. So then they just quit on their journey altogether. But the reality is, even if you can't exercise, exercise is responsible for such a small portion of what should be your calorie deficit that it actually can almost be irrelevant if you're looking after your nutrition. So what can you do? Let's say you're under a huge amount of pressure and you just don't have time to go to the gym. You don't have time for your steps. You don't even have time to cook. My question would be, do you have 15, 20 minutes at some time during the week to go to your local grocery store and buy 5 frozen meals? Because if you can get good, calorie controlled, high protein, frozen meals, guess what's going to happen? You're taking care of your nutrition. You're ticking that box. As an example, a great brand in Australia is the brand My Muscle Chef. So what most of us do is we get to the point where we're like, oh, I can't exercise, and then we order Uber Eats or go and get a pizza or eat from a cafe, and that's where the problems come in. So instead, what if we had a backup of frozen meals in the fridge, in the freezer, for any time that we get stuck? That's not cheating. That's not dumb. That's incredibly smart. These frozen meals are going to cost you probably $10 a meal. But by the time you actually go and pay for Uber Eats or go to a coffee and go to a cafe and get a coffee while you're there, or have the sandwich made, whatever you normally do instead, actually $10 for a frozen meal that is perfect on the macros, perfect on the calories. As an example, most of the My Muscle Chef meals are going to be 400 calories and 500 calories for 40 or 50 grams of protein. Absolutely perfect. This is all we need to do. We just worry about our nutrition. Now, I'm not saying that exercise is unimportant. I'm saying that on the weeks that you can't fit it in, it's okay. Don't go from black and white. Don't go from like, oh, look at me in January, exercising every day, eating perfectly, to, oh my God, it's April, I can't do anything. You can. You can. You can look after your nutrition, and it's really not that hard. The final point that I want to raise around when things get difficult what do you do? Because I know that there's a bunch of you that are watching here, both in our academy and on Instagram, and you're struggling, right? And there's nothing wrong with you. It's like, you're not an idiot. You're dealing with the same troubles that I'm dealing with, that we're all dealing with. So let's remove the guilt and shame and let's help each other. The final thing is that something that has really stuck with me since reading Atomic Habits, the book Atomic Habits, and that is, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So let's talk about this. What he's saying is that we all start the year with the same goals. Who here had aggressive goals for 2025? And how many of us are still working towards those goals? If you are, that's amazing. But the majority of us have quit on them already. And the reason is because we set goals when we're super motivated and when we're all on holidays. We've all got the same goals. We want to have more money, be happier, spend more time with our family and our friends, enjoy more sun, right? All the things, and be healthier. But then by April, everything's gone pear-shaped and no one's executed. Why? Because we set so many overwhelming goals. You know that phrase? It's in my gym, and it says, shoot for the moon, and if you fail, you'll land in the stars. I personally think that's an absolutely terrible phrase. Why? Because everyone's shooting from the moon and not landing in the stars. They're landing in a pile of shit. Because we fall to the level of our systems. We don't rise to our goals. We don't rise to the moon. We fall to the shit house. And the reason is because we've built our systems based on when things are perfect. So what we're better to do, and what I said to my man, is let's build your systems on what's going to happen when things, let's just pretend he's about to get on a meeting. And I said, what's going to happen if your boss says, well, you've got to work double the hours next week? What's going to happen to your system? Is it going to crumble? Okay. If you know that in advance, then why do you think it's going to change? So let me ask you guys a question, and you guys a question. Have you built a system based on you being perfect? Have you even got a system? If you don't have a system, you're just kidding yourself. But if you actually are hoping to lose a bit of weight, get in a bit of shape, get a bit fitter, what's your system for doing so? If you don't have a system, you better get a system. But what's your system based at? Everything being perfect? Is it based on the kids being in school holidays, not being sick, you working a 30-hour week, never getting in a fight with your husband or wife? Here's a good one. Systems that are built on only being fit when it's sunny outside. It doesn't work. So what we've got to do is we've got to say, what are the non-negotiables? What are the things that if everything goes to shit, that we can execute on? I'll give you some examples of things that you could think about. Frozen meals, right? When you don't feel like cooking, what are you going to do? It's either Uber Eats or it's whatever's in the fridge or freezer. Have a system that's ready-made for when things go to shit. Okay. Most people approach their gym, their training like this. I'll just see how things go this week. And then before they know it, Monday's a shit fight. Tuesday becomes Monday. Then kids' school practice, sports, etc. on Wednesday. And then all of a sudden it's Friday and they think to themselves, I've just wasted another week. Why am I so useless? I'll start again Monday. Repeat, repeat, repeat. So what instead we was to say, I'm going to do a 30-minute workout every Monday, without fail. Maybe it's before the kids wake up, maybe it's before school. Would it change your confidence about the week if you made sure that on a Monday, which sets the tone for the rest of the week, you did a 30-minute workout and you put it into your Google Calendar? The process of identifying a time and putting it in is the thing that works. What about if you literally have a meal plan that you follow on the days that things are tough? That you don't worry about tracking your nutrition or any of that fancy stuff. This is just what I do when things get tough. For me, what that looks like is I have egg white scramble in the morning. I have a coffee. I have a protein bar after the gym. I come back, I have 2 microwave wraps that are frozen, and I put them in the air fryer. I then have some tuna and some rice at lunch. I have a mid-afternoon snack of beef jerky, and then I have steak with salad at dinner. That's it. That's a repeatable meal plan that I don't have to think about the calories, because I know the calories in that are roughly 2,500 calories. I'm hitting 200 grams of protein. Boom. I don't have to think about it. Does this make sense, team? So the first question is like, do you have a system? And the next question is your system an all-weather system? Is your system built on when things are shit? Because if it's built on when things were shit, that's better than it built on when things are good. When you get called in to do an 80-hour week, your system's all weather. It's ready to go. We're good. That's okay. I don't try to train 5 days a week. I lock in 2 days a week, as an example. I make sure that at night I'm in bed by 10 p.m. at the absolute latest, as an example. That's a system. If you find yourself, how many of us do this? We have a really tough day, we work a bit later, this pushes dinner back later, and then before we know it, we're there exhausted on the couch at like 11 o'clock, scrolling on Instagram. There's probably a few people doing this right now, and just going like, oh, fuck, I've got to get to bed. I've got to be up at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. If your system was built on, the non-negotiable is that I don't stay up through the week past 10 o'clock, as an example, that's a system. What about the system of, okay, this is one of my systems, I just don't drink alcohol midweek. That's a system. I don't have to think about it. It's just a system. So what I've tried to do in this podcast is dumb down things, not for lack of intelligence. You guys are smart, but you get caught up here, just like we all do. So what I'd love to say is, let's go back through the 3 points. Number 1, prioritize yourself, your health, not for the whole day, just for 30 minutes, because you know that you feel better when you're not self-sacrificial, when you're looking after yourself, when you prioritize a little bit of the day to look after yourself, you feel better. Number 1. Number 2, nutrition fixes everything. So on the days that you can't exercise and you can't train, that's okay. Don't fuck with your nutrition. Have a simple nutrition plan. Don't think, oh, well, because I can't do, because I haven't got any frozen meals, now I'm just going to order from Uber Eats. That's where you get stuck. The third one is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And predictable is that today's going to be good, tomorrow's going to be shit, or vice versa. So if we know that, why don't we set up a plan that makes it okay to do on all days? And if we can do that, we can start to build consistency. Now, what happens when we start to build consistency? We start to build trust with ourselves again. Most people have no self-belief. If your partner told you repeatedly that they were going to do something and they didn't do it, you would lose trust with them, right? That's the exact same thing for us guys. If I repeatedly break my word to myself, I start to distrust myself, which means I've got a lack of self-belief. And then when I have a lack of self-belief, I go to do something new and uncomfortable, and the first thing I think of is, I can't do this. I don't trust myself anymore. So we've got to be light on ourselves, but consistent over a longer period of time. If you're able to adopt this model that I've just gone through here, and we could fast forward 3 or 4 months, you are going to be a completely different person because you've learned to trust yourself again. You've built self-belief, which is falsely termed confidence. When you've got self-belief, you can step outside of your comfort zone and take on things that maybe would have scared you before, and trust that the universe has got your back because you've proven to yourself that you can do it. Guys, this has been the Better Body Academy podcast, coming to you for another episode as we approach 400 episodes. If you want to check the podcast out on any of the major players, you simply go to Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, all those, and search for the Better Body Academy podcast. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace. Team, hello and thanks for watching on Instagram. Hope it was helpful. We got all the girls coming in and saying hi, hi, hi. Hey, ladies, how are you? I hope you're having a fantastic afternoon, morning, or evening.